This is the series we use for what Gen Alpha. Hello, I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memes that the internet lost in the digital pond. The internet lost in the digital pond. And one of those memes pertains to toilets, or as they're known in the Skibidi universe, walking, talking, head-replacing entities. It means exactly what you think it does. And of course, as a certified YouTube sensation, I've done my fair bit of internet exploration. Right? Just off the top of my head, I've been to TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, and I think from that I've seen quite a few bizarre trends. So I know what I'm talking about. But when it comes to the Skibidi toilet series, whether you're just looking for a quick laugh or something to completely short-circuit your brain, it is worth learning that this phenomenon isn't necessarily the same as other viral sensations we've seen before. And so without further ado, let's metaphorically flush our expectations down the drain as I uncover ways that Skibidi Toilet is very different from anything we've seen before. When I was out there for the first time on the digital open road, living the meme lifestyle on my daily scrolls, the first confusing thing that I noticed is that Skibidi Toilet videos, and as it turns out everything else related to them, insist upon taking you to different levels of absurdity than they would in normal content. Alex, what do you mean by that? Well, here's how Skibidi Toilet works. We'll get into terminology later. In the Skibidi universe, the world where I enter the video and speak to characters with toilet heads and ask them if they have any free dental floss, is known as completely normal. When you enter the Skibidi world, you press play to stay in reality. Nobody would ever do that. Or fast forward to go up to the next level of weirdness, or rewind to go back to sanity. And you get my drift. In Gen Alpha's world, I don't know why my hand is still up there. In Gen Alpha's world, it's a little bit different, because that same video, where I enter the Skibidi universe and talk to toilet-headed characters and ask them for some free dental floss, and they actually know what dental floss is just the beginning. And this is usually denoted in the comments by the number of mind-blown emojis. So the video immediately after that is even weirder and then weirder and then weirder. And then I'm a little bit hazy after that. And then you get to your recommended videos. And this is where those intergenerational differences really take shape. Or should I say size? Because there's one key rule on the whole. Skibidi Toilet videos tend to be shorter than their traditional counterparts. And the reason for this, as we all know, is that Gen Alpha marginally out-attentions the rest of us. But it's also because the internet is about a 40th the size of the real world. And so we just sort of cram things in fact, awkwardly. A tiny Skibidi Toilet video was where I first met my niece's obsession, and she was watching a clip about the size of this studio, which surprisingly, given that I am often dubbed the internet's finest meme connoisseur, is not that big. And at the best of times, I don't like being confused by content. But being squashed in a room with my future replacement generation was the second most horrifying experience of my life. And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, what was the first? Being squashed in the elevator with them on the way up while they played Skibidi Toilet videos at full volume. But the next time we met to watch internet content, we sure did have a chuckle. At least I think we did. I couldn't hear them because they were on the other side of the room, lost in their own Skibidi world. You see, Skibidi Toilet videos like memes or viral trends or the internet itself are just bigger in impact. I mean, they'd have to be, right? Especially given what we've discovered on this channel about the differences in generational humor. And of course, a video is not the only place in the Skibidi universe where you'd find toilet heads. In addition to the videos, the fan art, and in desperate times, the cosplay, which should prompt nobody to ask me about the toilet paper incident of 2023, there is also the merchandise. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, the Skibidi Toilet merch has separate designs for each character. Well, firstly, that's not always true. And secondly, that's not where I was going with this. I was actually going to mention the fan engagement because while in traditional media, the fans and the creators are more or less separate from each other. This is often not the case in the Skibidi universe. To go from viewer to creator, you often have to kind of step up because the barrier to entry is lower than the floor. There's one thing to remember this: getting in, but getting out when your brain is wet and soapy with Skibidi logic. It could lead to an unintentionally hilarious TikTok video. In fact, I do have footage, but I can't show it on here because I'd get hundreds of complaints and an equal number of marriage proposals. So just take my word for it. Skibidi toilet references are of course found in many places and through much of our daily lives, but never more do I need them than when I'm trying to understand Gen Alpha. So because of this, it is worth remembering some of the key differences between traditional media and Skibidi toilet content. Don't take my word for it. Instead, listen to me from last year. It was once said by me in just a second from now that you can tell a lot about a generation by the size of its memes. And given its unparalleled record of boasting larger stuff than everyone else, Gen Alpha might fancy its chances of winning the My Memes bigger than your memes debate. But the truth is, and you might find this shocking, Skibidi toilet memes are larger in impact. You can't talk about Skibidi toilet without talking about characters. Characters are the protruding sticks of weirdness that keep the series attached to reality like a docked plane. And the only reason I made an aviation sim there was to draw your attention to the miniature control tower I made from Skibidi toilet figurines while I was bored. Anyway, there are several key differences in this department. On Skibidi toilet videos, the characters are ever so slightly more absurd and crucially more numerous. This makes them sturdier and impossible to ignore. How do I know that? Because I was 14 once, and now I'm reliving it through Gen Alpha's eyes. But whereas Skibidi toilet videos, that is type weird content, are decidedly multi-charactered, that's not always the case in traditional media. Sure, ensemble casts, the ones whose storylines look like surprised ghosts, definitely do have multiple characters. But single protagonist stories, which are easily the more outgoing and competitive of the two, are single-focused, due to the manner in which each medium feeds the narrative into the audience. There's also a difference in how they hang from the cultural zeitgeist. In Skibidi toilet, the narrative hangs vertically from the absurdity, thus making it harder to yank from the wall of pop culture by pulling the cable of logic. And the horizontal connection of traditional narratives means that you can do this in theory, but it's not recommended. One of the biggest concerns for older generations visiting the Skibidi universe, aside from being forced to eat logic spaghetti, is the great Skibidi traditional content divide. In Skibidi, narrative voltage is categorized as 230 volts of pure chaos, while it's generally 120 in traditional media. Moreover, Skibidi electricity operates on a 50 Hz frequency of weirdness and traditional media on 60. What does all of this mean? Well, let's just say that you want to use your traditional storytelling laptop in Skibidi land, but it doesn't run on 230 volts of absurdity, is not dual voltage, or is incompatible with 50 Hz of nonsense. In that instance, you'll need to run to Meme Station to pick up some logic converters. A logic converter will convert the voltage from 230 volts of chaos to the voltage of your sanity. In the event that your logic converter doesn't come with a Skibidi toilet adapter, be sure to also pick up one of these. In the event that your logic converter doesn't come with a Skibidi toilet adapter, be sure to also pick up one of these. This Skibidi adapter is magic. It allows you to turn your type A or B traditional story into a type weird Skibidi story. For Gen Alpha visiting traditional media, the same applies, but in reverse. A step-down logic converter or transformer might also be needed to safely use devices in the real world. Both are widely available for older generations and Gen Alpha on Amazon. I'd say the most obvious difference between Skibidi toilet and traditional content is the temperature. When I first watched a Skibidi toilet video, I couldn't believe how cool it was, and not in a Morgan Freeman type way. I mean, this was a dank meme, I just mean it was mind-blowing, but in traditional media, you don't usually have that problem and/or luxury, because a significant amount of traditional content is either not mind-blowing or not mind-blowing. Well, this is a particular problem when you're squished in one with your future replacement generation. As with many areas of life, Skibidi toilet is its own subgenre of internet versus traditional media word differences. Take, for instance, the name that we assign to that helpful character who helps you navigate the Skibidi universe. In Skibidi and much of the rest of the internet, this entity is known as a meme lord. This is the word we use for what traditional media might call a narrator or a guide. Also, whether it's situated on the ground or the first floor of weirdness, internet dwellers and traditional media consumers also can't agree on what you call that area of the content that you enter. Upon entering Skibidi, we usually opt for the word rabbit hole. Please note that traditional media consumers, just like patrons on my most recent secret stream, are divided on whether this should be pronounced rabbit hole or wormhole. Either way, traditional media will often call this area the introduction. More often than not, Skibidi fans will call a plot twist a bamboozle. Traditional media will call a bamboozle a plot twist. While traditional media have about 100 words for a character arc, chief among these are hero's journey, redemption arc, fall from grace or character development, and finally, viral trends. This is something I've encountered far more in the Skibidi universe than I have in traditional media. This is a spreading service offered in meme culture in which you pay attention to spread content for you. But the use of viral might be confusing to some traditional media consumers. You might think of viral, often pronounced viral, as a medical term. A fine example of which is the character of Dr. House from the medical drama that I somehow keep mentioning in my videos just by coincidence. That's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below some of the Skibidi toilet differences that you've encountered. You can follow me on YouTube at Lost in the Meme US, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the digital pond. Thank you to my patrons for literally making this video happen. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so today. Until the next video, goodbye.